All right, Walter. Cutting them off again. How's everybody doing today? Thanks so much for being here. It's been a little while since I've been on. Let me get my window pop out chat so I can see all this stuff. There we go. Everybody hear me okay? BV is already celebrating the holidays, so it's just me running the show. So let me know if there's any issues. Should be okay. I tested everything. All right. So first up, got a few things for sale. Don't forget, if you don't have the Arpeggios ebook, check it out. It's for free. The mini course and okay, loud and clear, awesome. The mini course and the free Arpeggios ebook. So I think that if you want to get into learning your arpeggios, it's a good way to do it, and it's free. If you don't have that, just go over there. Link on the bottom there, over on the side. And then you can get that for free. Also, I have my Art of Melodic Soloing course on sale for 60% off using the link in the chat and also down below. So there you have it. We can talk about what I've been up to. I was out in England. I taught at the Guitar Breaks thing. I was on that pedal show for you guys that saw me. So we can talk about all that. But let's talk about the year in gear. So first thing I want to do is some of the gear that I'm going to talk about today that I really love is not maybe came out this year, but I was aware of it this year or got it this year. So the things that I end up using a lot, and that's what I'm going to talk about first. So the first thing, though, the thing I'm most excited about is, of course, the signature guitar that I did was my friend Michael Tuttle. And it's sort of our take, of course, on a Stratocaster, but with all to the specs that I want. And it's been great. I am overjoyed with the guitar. It's all I've been playing. All I've been playing is just this. So you saw it on that pedal show as well. You see it here. It was really I know I'd like it, but I'm surprised at how much I like it. How's that? For having a lot of vintage guitars or a number of vintage guitars. This is all I've been playing, so I'm super excited about it. It's a handmade guitar, so it's not an inexpensive item. And so the things I'm going to talk about today are different price points that I think are really cool pieces of gear. But in terms of a handmade custom guitar by my friend Michael Tuttle, here you go. Can't say enough cool stuff about the guitar. I love it. So any questions you have about it, I'm going to do a video on it, talking about it a bit more. So, all right. So the first thing that I discovered this year, I got a few things under here, is boom. These two pedals, I'm plugged into them right now. So the UA Lion. Now, Cards on Table, I'm friends with the guys at UA. They sent them to me. But if I didn't like it, I wouldn't. I've got other stuff from them. Say like, they sent me the Anti, which is sort of like their heavier thing. I just can't get along with it. It's not that it's not good. It's just not my thing, So I'm really a Marshall guy. And I have, which is their Dumble thing, which I think sounds great. I haven't a lot of time to play with it. This just made super easy sense to me super quickly. So if you were looking for a direct solution, and it was also when I went on the road, I brought this as my backup amplifier with a power amp. Okay, so I didn't end up having to play through it, which I'm kind of happy about, but I did check it out at rehearsal, and it was pretty darn good. So I plugged this into a Seymour Duncan power stage, and that was the backup just in case my Sir Plexi that my friend let me borrow crapped out. So I've talked about this before. And also here is the Delverb. Now, let's talk about the Delverb first. I love delay and reverb, and there's lots of great ones. You saw my bigger pedal board's got separate delays and reverbs. But to have something both in one, I feel like the Delverb, they really, hit it out of the park if you want. The Delverb sounds amazing. So let me just go through a little bit of sounds. I have the Lion on right now, and there we're just using a basic Plexi sound. It sounds pretty great. So there's a number of ways we can go through. Right, so right now I just have it set on a Plexi. So the Delverb, what I really love about it is, first of all, it's all in one pedal. So I have the reverb on. Let's just crank the reverb, spring, plate, and it's the UA reverb. Of course, I'm overdoing it just to show you how nice it sounds. Now, the way I have the pedal set up at the moment is I could have it where I turn on the reverb with this and turn on the delay with this. I have it set right now. One of the functions that you can do through the phone app is this is my tap tempo for my delay. But the reverb sounds great. I mean, UA stuff always sounds great. There's our spring. Clean this up a little bit. You know, it just sounds great. So the delays, let's hear the Hall for a second. Here's the Hall play. And you can change all these things on the phone, on a phone app, which is really nice, or you can save them as a preset. Or you just kind of have what's on the pedal, which I just kind of leave it at that. So here's my general setting. Really like the plate, kind of bring it to here. And here's without the reverb. And with. So I think it's just a great pedal. And now for the delay. And that is their tape delay. It's got a mixed there high. This would be Digital Memory Man. And then their precision delay, which is a bit more of a cleaner digital, I think. So let's kind of leave it on the tape. I can add mod to it. Color. So there's all these different ways you can adjust it. I don't want to go too deep into it. But for an all-in-one pedal, this thing is awesome. I think it's, for me, one of my favorite pedals that I've come across. Their UA reverbs and delays are always sound amazing to me. It's Universal Audio. And I end up putting it in the effects loop of, say, something like the Jake. And I've been really, really happy with it. So if there's like a pedal, like you're like, oh, what should I, you know, what's a good pedal to get for reverb and delay, both in one? I really love this thing right there. Next up, one thing I've really been enjoying, like I said, I brought it on the road as a backup, is the Lion by UA. And that's their Marshall Plexi simulator. Like I said, you can get all this stuff on the phone app. So let me just get my phone app going. Focus, so people texting me, which always happens while I'm online. See if we can get this to read. Sometimes it's hard to read that on the phone. Come on, here we go. So if I'm looking at the Lion, can we see that right there? Right. So I can go through my different sounds by going into the Lion. And it's pretty cool once it loads. Of course it was. As we sit there and wait for it to come through. There we go. So some of the factory settings, one of my favorites is this one. It's this cream one, so if I use my humbucker guitar, that will be out of tune. Now it's got a lot of room sound on it, which is really cool, so you can take some of the room off of that, which is kind of nice. Let's boost. Oh, sorry, there's the room right there. Hard to see. So I did a video on some Eric Clapton licks using my Firebird, and all I did was play through these two things together. So I really think it's a great piece of gear, both of them. It sounds pretty great. What do you guys think? Let me know. You can put in the comments. Let me know over there. I really like it. So someone just asked, Piero, your fractal Marshalltones sound great. How would you compare the Lion to the fractal? They both sound really good. So far, I think that for straight on sort of plexi sounds or more like a super bass sound, I've had a little bit more luck dialing in quickly the Lion. Just there's like less, it just was a little easier. I think you guys know I love the fractal, but there was something about getting like that spoonful sort of sound that I just did. Like that's the preset, and you go to the recording, you can tweak it a little bit to your speakers and your liking. That's pretty good. That's that, and it feels good. And the best thing I can say about it as a piece of gear was when I was working on that video where I did the cream licks and used that, I was starting to use my super lead through the aux, and I was like, oh, which one sounds better? And I was going back and forth between the two. I was going to do a video comparing the two. It was too difficult to do because you're dealing with IRs, and they both sounded really good. And then at one point, I thought I was still playing to the Marshall super lead, and I was actually playing to the Lion. So I was like, okay, so that kind of did it for me. That it's a really good, solid piece of gear. I think it's a good one. So UA Lion and the Delverb, I think those are both really solid choices. But in terms of just like I want a good reverb and delay pedal, all in one that sounds amazing with a lot of options, it's kind of hard to beat that Delverb if you ask me. Also, if you want, I got a link below, and I can get a Sweetwater affiliate. If you like buying it, then I get a little bit of a kickback, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what I'm telling you. So that's not why I'm saying that. Okay, so first thing, wait, yes, let's talk. If people bring up certain things in the chat over here. So Guitar Grandpa, what's up, Randy? What am I running the Lion into? Okay, so I am running the Lion into, if I can get it on camera, my Universal Audio Apollo Twin Duo. So I just have it plugged right into the line in, and that's it. And then I put the Delverb right after it. So everything you're hearing, the reverb and delay is all coming from the Delverb, and then the guitar sounds are all coming from the Lion. And I'm monitoring just through my speakers. I've got these Atom Audio speakers, which are pretty nice. So I'm just playing at TV volume at the moment. And that's one of the things I really love about some of these things that you could do. Like that's a great little setup. I want to go to somebody's house and record. Sounds great. You got the presets on your phone. Oh, by the way, you have the presets on the phone for the Delverb as well, with some really cool sounds too. So I think it's good. Everything is a little tweaky. Of course, everything you use is going to take some time for you to dial it in. And please set your expectations accordingly. So what I mean by that is, wow, well, it sounds kind of like Cream's, like Spoonful from Cream, but it's not exactly like it. Well, yeah, of course it doesn't sound exactly like it. That's a live recording on analog tape in a huge room. Like all those things that you need to take into account. But as a direct solution that's very small, I think it sounds great. And it takes pedals really well. And I felt really happy with it when I said I did a rehearsal, part of the rehearsal, with that to see how I liked it. And Walter, the keyboard player, is like, I don't really hear a difference. And I'm like, okay, between that and the Sir amp, I heard a difference, but I heard what he was saying. It was not one of those things. It felt a little different. And okay, also, I think this feels really nice. And usually if you put a pedal in front of it, like something with a buffer, like certain pedals will make things feel better anyway. So, all right, so the Lion and the Delverb. And one other comment that was right here, that Jeff Motter said that there's something to be said for physical knobs, especially live. Absolutely. So that's a really great point about something like the Fractal, which I really, really am a proponent of as well. But not so much live, because over here I have bass, middle, treble, and presence, and I can just hit that and go through it, do it really quickly. So for me, they're not inexpensive, I'm not going to lie. And how does it compare to something like the two-note stuff, or what's the one, the Tone X? I don't know. I haven't played those, so I can't say. I don't know. Sounds pretty good, and that's just those two pedals plugged into anything you plug it into. Now you could plug it into, as Guitar Grandpa's asking, can you plug it into the return of an effects loop? Absolutely. I have not tried that, but plenty of guys do that. And what's nice about that, you can turn off the cabinet on it, so you just have the straight amp. That's what I did. Okay, by the way, when I ran it into the Seymour Duncan Power Stage, or I think that's what it's called, I was running into a real guitar cab. So I just turned off the speaker emulation and it sounded better. With the speaker emulation on, you're getting EQ on top of EQ, and I didn't like the way that sounded, so I just turned it off. And it sounded great. Jeff Matter, I have the Dream 65 and love it. Checked out David Barber's intros, and Keith have been using it. Sounds killer. They all do. Like the Dream 65 is really great, like I said. The Enigmatic is also really, really nice sounding. It's just a little more tweaky. I haven't had much time to. They sent me this before I went on tour. It came when I was on tour, and I've been home, and then I went to England. So I haven't had really a lot of time to mess with it. But this is really great too. But it's much tweakier for sure, because any Dumble kind of amp is more tweaky anyway. So there's the things like ratio and all these things that you got to have to know the amp. This one I just found the presets are great. A number of them are really great. I just plugged in. I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty great. So the same thing when I was plugging into the Fractal, when you play their presets, you're like, well, that sounds great. All right, so okay, so those are the two direct things that I would highly recommend. Not direct, you can use this for anything, but the two UA pedals that I think are really well worth the money. This one to me is a bit of a no-brainer. I've been really happy with it. Why isn't it on my main board? The main thing, if you watch that pedal show, the other thing that I did, I like having a few presets. The one thing where I think this falls a little short, and a lot of people say, is there's no presets, except for, you can set it up for, you have like, no, I don't think you can have any presets in this. I'm pretty sure. If you do, you can only have one. I can't quite remember. You have one preset here on this thing, but I don't think you have any presets on that. It's whatever is on the knobs or whatever you call up on the phone. So this is great for my travel, like a little board, like a travel board or something like that, or just something I just want some nice reverb and a little bit of delay. I'm not going to be switching stuff out. So I'm really think that that's awesome. It's kind of old school in the sense you have a tap tempo, but what's on the pedal is what it's doing, and it's reverb and delay in one. So once again, like I said, it's, yes, I work with the company and all that, yes, but I love it. It's great. Okay, so next up, I'm going to switch over. Let's turn this off. So in terms of the next piece of gear that I got that I love, let me fix my camera because I'm covering it. Sorry, guys. Just one-man show. Is the Friedman Jakey Lee. Let's plug into that. And so, having been a Marshall guy my whole life, and you guys know I play T-Rocks and all that, but I have an old Marshall, which is awesome, but there are all these problems that come with old Marshalls, and the problems with those things are, one, do they have a master volume? The old ones don't. So I wanted a cool modded amp with a master volume. I would like to have an effects loop. Now, I've talked about times not liking effects loops. I like effects loops if you want a very traditional sort of power amp guitar sound. You can't quite do that with an effects loop. So when Friedman put out his Plex amp, which is just to sound like the best Plexi you've ever heard, he didn't put an effects loop in it because that's not the sound of a Plexi. That the Plexis are the power amp distortion really going. So I've played a number of Friedmans, and I think he makes great stuff. I had a Dirty Shirley a long time ago, which I think sounds really good. It didn't have enough headroom for me, and it wasn't cutting through enough. I had a Pink Taco, and he's stupidly named amps, I have to say. And it was cool, but it had no headroom. I had it for a little too distorted. So I was looking at the Jakey Lee 20 watt, and how can I put this? This is if there's an amp I could have had when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, if it were this, I'd be totally psyched. So I'm totally psyched now. So we have 2 channels. It's not inexpensive, but I decided I wanted to have an amp with a great master volume. Dave makes great stuff, really well constructed. Effects loop and a master volume and 2 channels. So here's the Plexi side. What I like that he does, if I turn it down, the volume all the way up, crank everything. Is that really distorting? I hope not. But you hear how that really sounds like a cranked Plexi sort of thing right there. So with an effects loop and a master volume. So there I cranked everything. So one thing I like about this is he's got it set up like a Marshall. So if you guys are familiar with Marshalls, the bass, treble, and middle don't always do that much, right? So with this one, I like that when you turn it up like that, it remains very Plexi-ish. So sometimes these amps can have a lot of bass. You turn it up, like it starts to do that farty thing. He kept this very Marshall-y, and that's from the whole Jakey Lee thing where he wanted it to be much more like a 70s Marshall or an 800, like an 80s, 70s, 80s GMP to an 800 with a little bit of mods. Okay, so that's the amp. I mean, that's the amp cranked on 10. But if I roll it back, I'm gonna lose some of the gain because of the power amp tubes, but pretty great. That's everything at noon. In the back, there's like a thump control, and then there's a presence. So sounds really great. I really love the amp. All right, so now what I also like is that we have another channel. This is sort of the 800 side. I'll plug in a heavier guitar in a minute. So that has a nice range between the 2 SAT channels. 2 separate volumes. Crank up that gain. Now here's the preamp gain on 10 on that side. Cleans up great. Okay, now they have a pull gain on the volume knob, or the gain switch. Now, what I really like, and I've played other Friedmans and say like the Brown Eye, all those sound amazing. They all sound great. There's something about this one, this is what Jakey Lee had discussed. It's still got edges and teeth to it, right? So it's a bit raunchy sounding, and I think Marshall should sound that way. Like I think some of the more modern high gain amps can sound a little more refined than I like my amplifiers to sound, if that makes sense. So this one still sounds like a ragged Marshall to a certain extent. That's as much gain as it gets with the normal low output single coils. And that's pretty great for me. And it's not like a chuggy amp, right? You know, it's not, does it chug, or does it gent, or whatever that expression is. Not really. And that's great, because I don't want that. So I can totally get AC/DC on this. I can get kind of fusion-y on it. I'll talk about that in a second too. So let's plug in a humbucker. And hear that. Let's go Super Strat. Hold on. Yeah, let's go Les Paul. So the full gain. And but I also like it in the neck. Right? So it doesn't get like that kind of weird flubby overtony thing, which I really like. So I'm gonna hit this gain, drop it down a bit. Pretty nice. So let's go back to the Plexi side for a sec. And also, it cleans up. There's some things you're missing when you're going to an aux. When you're in the room with a real amp, there's all those things that happen. And I also know that you're also picking up some of the guitar. There's no way I can really get rid of that. I need some sort of muting system or something that I can turn off my microphone. So you're hearing some of the guitar. I know it can be a little annoying. When I watch these back sometimes, I'm like, I wish I could cut that out. Let me turn off my mic for just a second, because I know I'll forget to turn it back on. That's always the problem. So let me turn off my mic, and then I'll play a little bit. Cool, right? So that's the amp. I'm pretty psyched to use it on a gig. So we got any questions? All right, so I'll get back to questions in a second. So it is expensive. The 20 watt version may be more practical in many ways. I've only heard clips, and I got to hand it off to Dirty Guitars. I'm just totally spacing on his website. His stuff, the videos I've heard comparing the 20 watt to the 100 watt to the 50 watt were all really close. So the 20 watt is way less expensive. It has an effects loop. I only got the 50 watt because I sometimes worry about headroom. I like wanting to have a little bit more of the clean headroom. And somebody just chimed in earlier. They're saying that we talked back and forth, I think, about the 20 watt, that it's really, really loud. So the thing that I sometimes get a little weird about is I have tried 20 watt amps on gigs, and they're awesome and they're amazing until they aren't, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is there's just nothing worse when you're playing and then suddenly you just run out of headroom. And you want to take a solo, or the band's getting a little loud and you've got nowhere to go. It just starts to fart out, or you just max out on the overdrive. So when they announced they were coming out with the 50, I went back and forth. I was like, it was, I didn't get it. No deal. I bought it flat out. But I wanted something that was much more controllable than this thing, and a lot lighter and less loud with a master volume and an effects loop. So the way I've been running it just at home is I've been putting that Delverb into the effects loop of that. I would do that right now, but I would have to unplug everything. It's great. So I've got a gig coming up next month. Well, it's actually in February. And I might, So what's the difference between this and my Two-Rock? A lot. This sounds nothing like my Two-Rock, and my Two-Rock sounds nothing like this. So that's really awesome. I wanted a rock amp. And the Two-Rock, my Bloomfield drive gets pretty rocky. Other wildly expensive amp. But this is, this is a modded Marshall, is what it is. So I would definitely take a look at the 20 watt if you're interested in something like that. And also if you're playing at home, this thing is really loud. So I'm really only playing it to the aux or to my power station and then adjusting the volume. I've yet to gig with it, but I've turned it up at home to a certain level and it sounds really good. So I'm really impressed with it. It does everything that I wanted this kind of amp to do. So I would say if there's one piece of gear that I was completely overjoyed with, besides my new Tuttle, it is that amplifier. It's really nice, not inexpensive, like I said. So let me know if there are any questions on that. Pretty nerdy stuff today. All right, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, hey, Nick Granville, what's up? You guys check out Nick Granville's channel. He's been working on a YouTube channel, doing good stuff. So check him out. Australia, right, Nick? How would you describe the difference between a Plexi and a JTM 45? Plexis are much more aggressive. They have a tighter low end. If you were to give me like a JTM 45 and a Plexi next to each other, you wanted more clean sounds, I would probably opt towards a JTM 45 and as like a pedal platform. But if there was just one, you can do that with a Plexi. Now, Plexis can have different treble circuits or not, or bass circuits. So this is a super lead, but it's a dialed back super lead. It's not quite as, my guitar tech, it's not quite a super bass, but it's not quite a super lead. It's a little less strident. So the newer Marshalls, like the stock 1987X, which is a Plexi, is very chonky, like in your face. That pedal show did a great demonstration between a new 1987X and a JTM 45 on their channel, and a really good version of it. I would only say that the thing that they did, I can get a little bit more of a warmer sound than they were getting out of the Marshall if you just kind of learn how to use not that Mick and Dan don't know, but if you're not a Marshall guy your whole life, which I was prior to the Two-Rocks, you learn all the little tricks of plugging into a low input and then turning this up, those kind of things. JTM 45s, the biggest thing just technically is a JTM 45 is also has a tube rectifier. So it's going to be a little saggier and mushier, which can be really nice. Yeah, everyone does that cranked Marshall sound awesome except for Marshall. Now, I can't say this for sure, but I've seen some weird little, NAMAs coming up, little pictures. I think Marshall's got something up its sleeve to finally go after the market that they created. I think. I hope so, because how cool would it be to have something like that made with that quality that says Marshall on it? I think it could be a fever dream, but I remember seeing a few little Instagram things coming, and it was like a corner of a Marshall and said modded by, or I was like, wait a minute, what? So that would be the smartest thing that they could do if they, and I know my friend from Marshall sometimes watches the show, so please tell me you're doing that, because there's nothing cooler than something saying Marshall on it. I enjoyed the TPS episode with you, Jeff. Thanks, man. That was so much fun. I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go through the gear. I'll come back to that. I like sometimes the mic in there, if I guess Nick really adds some of the clarity. Sorry, guys. Let's read into yours. Hands sound sharp today, Jeff. Touring agrees with you. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Is this your preferred state of playing wise? Well, I addressed that a bit on that pedal show. What it comes down to, honestly, guys, I'm not like a stunt guitarist, if that makes any sense. And it's not like tooting my own horn. I've come across this a lot of gigs. And if you listen to what that interview I did with Greg Koch the other day, is I get that a lot. People come to gigs and they're like, oh, wow, I had no idea you could actually really play. Or I didn't know you played like that. I didn't know you had those kind of chops or technique. I find, in all honesty, I'm much better at that kind of thing in the moment. Like if I'm playing with the band and going and doing it, I find that I'm just better that way. And putting on a camera in this sort of situation, it's a very unnatural playing situation. And I've never been fully comfortable with it. So even like at that pedal show when I went, I was like at 100 dB. I'm not used to playing at 100 dB, just kind of sitting down. I'm used to playing at that volume with a band, but kind of checking out your rig and then playing at 100 dB, and then you're like, whoa, like everything is, it's a different experience. So, cards on the table with this. I have a hard time turning on the camera here and going live and then kind of shredding. It's just kind of not the way. I don't feel comfortable with it. I become very self-conscious of it. But live, I don't care. I just kind of do it and go for it. Certainly, touring will help your hands feel better for sure. But my hands were freezing cold at the pedal show. It had snowed. And I get some issues with cold hands. It's a family trait. So my hands always have to be kind of warm. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Really like the sound of this Friedman. I really like the sound of this Friedman too. Let's see what we got. Your playing is so good, it definitely makes me not care. I appreciate that. Okay, how much of the articulation are you getting from the amp or the pickups of the Les Paul? You want me to plug in a different guitar? Let's go for my DGT. I mean, I do have Ron Ellis pickups in there. So, they are pretty high end and pretty good. So here's that same more gain. So yeah, the amp is really articulate. That's important to me. So I think it's hopefully a bit of both, but hit the ceiling with my Tweed Deluxe on a gig. Yeah, that's the worst. Do you ever play stuff from your album with Robin live, or just his stuff? Yeah, when I toured with Robin, which we don't have any plans to do again, the two tours that I did, we mixed it up. He gave me a bunch of my tunes to do on the road. He was extremely generous with that. Gave me solos, all sorts of stuff. He was really, really cool with it. Okay, so now just two more pedals, two more things. So now, I wanted to do a little bit of a fun thing. I'll switch back to, I'll go for the Strat in this too. So this is expensive, I'm not gonna lie. Vemram, I work with Vemram. I really like the sound of the Buddy G. It's like a boost pedal. It's a nice overdrive pedal. It's like a bunch of guys have been using it. I know Corey Congilio's got one on his board now, and I think it was Adam Miller was talking about using it. Matt Schofield's been using it. So I'm gonna boost into the front end of the amp. I'm using it as a boost. So as a boost goes, I really like this pedal a lot. I know it's a bit pricey. That's why I pulled out a blues driver. I'm gonna go A/B them. So just not to forget that the 79 or 89, whatever this thing is, the under $100 blues driver still sounds pretty darn good. Okay, so here's this. What I love about this pedal is I've got bass and treble, so I can dial it in. And gain, I have a saturation knob on there. I kind of have the sat up pretty high just for fun, because I'm playing with the Strat. I have it dialed in now more for a Strat, I have to be honest. So if I go into the high gain, so it's a matter of mixing the gain with the volume to get sort of the overdrive you want. So let's go to Strat for a sec. So I've been using the Booty G a lot. Why didn't it make it to my pedal board, that pedal show? Because all of it sounds good. There you go. I mean, it just sounds awesome. All right, so it is not inexpensive, but it is really, really nice. So let's check it out now. Right? So, guys, so let's have a talk, shall we? This is a bit more refined sounding. I ultimately think it sounds kind of better, honestly, when you play it at volume, and I like the tweakability of it. But the blues driver sounds freaking awesome. So would I be upset if I had a blues driver? Of course not. Yeah, I mean, listen to it. It sounds great. Also, the blues driver went more clean. So the Booty G into the blues driver. There you go. It's basically just a blues driver creating all that overdrive. Let's hear this. So that's now creating the overdrive itself. So I think it's a little bit more articulate, right? But so this isn't even the Wazacraft Boss pedal, which I hear is really great. I haven't gotten that one. This is just your straight on blues driver. So see what I'm getting at. I wanted to just throw that in there, that the blues driver or SD1, all those things can sound really amazing just into any amp, because that's what I was using growing up. Marshall with the SD1, you know. So does Michael Cope, does the Booty G destroy the Shanks? No, two different things. The Shanks is my favorite sort of overall pedal for overdrive. Just love that one. But this is really nice, and this into the Shank sounds awesome as well. So there's all sorts of ways you can go about it, you know. Lots of ways, and you know, frankly, there's so many great overdrive pedals. It's kind of hard to find a really bad sounding one. I have not come across one where I've been like, oh, this sounds terrible. There's a few, but anything like Keith's bus pedal sounds awesome. The Barber Direct Drive, awesome sounding pedal. The Boss Blues Driver sounds amazing. You know, like, so you're talking about these different price points. They don't have to be, you know, a $400, whatever this cost pedal, for sure. Which percentage better you would say that the boutique is versus the custom shop stuff is? You're talking about pedals. You know, where I can really where I often hear it is the better amp you're playing through. So now we're playing through an aux. So we've entered the digital realm, right? And but if I'm playing into a Two-Rock in the room, okay, perfect example, when I was at that pedal show and I was also at the Guitar Breaks workshop, one of the guys there brought a bunch of Two-Rock. So I was playing through a Bloomfield drive, through a 212 cabinet with my full pedal board, and it sounded just amazing. And some of the guys played through my rig and they were like, yeah, wow, that does sound a lot better. So I find that those percentage differences that you can hear with the boutique versus the non-boutique stuff are more appreciable when you're playing through like a higher end amp or playing at volume. That's when I really find the big difference. So if I'm playing like through everything's kind of squashed down in a digital world a little bit, I don't find it to be as dramatic. The only thing that I find about some of the boutique pedals is they've just dialed in some of the idiosyncrasies of these that guys like Robert Keeley have done and Analog Man, and now Boss has caught on and doing them themselves, that sometimes this can be a little harsh if you turn the treble up too high. So they've kind of figured a lot of those things out to make the tone controls and the sweeps of things better. When I was like 30th Street Guitars in New York is carrying the Vemriam stuff, and my friend said, who carries it, Jimmy, does my pedal board, he's like, yeah, okay, they're worth it. They just sound more expensive. And I find their pedals to be one of the companies that when I plug in, I go, yeah, this kind of sounds a little better. But it also depends on what you're playing through. And I think that's a big part of it. If you're playing through, you know, Boss Katana, which is a perfectly great amp, you're not going to hear that percentage difference that when your pedal costs more than your amplifier. You're not going to hear it, right? Okay, that's a cool thing. If your pedal costs more than your amp, you're not going to hear it. Probably. All right. Right. Through the phone, the Vemriam and the Blues Driver sound almost identical. Absolutely. And here I can hear a little bit of a difference. Definitely when I'm playing at full volume, I can hear a difference. And sometimes those differences are worth it to me because sometimes there's just that little thing you can't dial out of certain pedals. Like I'm not a big Tube Screamer guy. I have a really hard time with them. So also, you know, I've worked hard at getting my hands to sound good. So, as they said in that pedal show, we talked about all this stuff. It's the pedals just kind of like remove some impediments along your way. They make things easier to get the sound that you have out in your head. Playing to this Blues Driver, if I just start plugging into it and playing it, I'm not upset at all. It sounds great, you know? So also there's the world of A-Bing. I think we've talked about this. Like you could be totally happy with your rig and then you plug into something that's maybe more expensive or better and you're like, oh, that sounds better. But you don't think about it when you're playing your rig, when you're happy with it. So that's always the dirty secret of the business. You know what I mean? This is the latest and greatest. You're still kind of gonna sound the same everywhere you go. But there's those little differences. So that brings me back to the initial thing of, yeah, I've got a lot of high-end pedals and things, but I've got high-end gear and guitar. It's my job. It's my business. It's where I decide I want to put, this is my thing. This is where my business. So a really, really expensive pedal into an inexpensive amp may not be the best choice. So you would probably want to upgrade to a pretty good amp. What I mean by a pretty good amp, just a tube amp, a good tube amp, a Fender. You can go over to Lyle and Psionic Audio and figure out which what reissue to get, or you can get like a little Tyler amp or something inexpensive that's a good amplifier. I say inexpensive, meaning you gotta pay in the States upwards of $1,200 to $1,500 for I think a good tube amp. The digital stuff is really cool. It's fun, but it's a different thing. And then if you're plugging in a really expensive pedal into a like I said, a Boss Katana, which is really good amplifier, it's just kind of a waste, I think. So hopefully that answers some of those questions. So any other questions? I have a lot of people on here now. So let's just run over once again, my pedals choices. I covered that. So if you want the two things that I've been finding most impressive, or a few things that I think everybody should consider maybe getting, is the Delverb. To me is really a no-brainer. I hate that expression, but it really is true. Delay and reverb in one pedal. You have a tap tempo for the delay. Not a lot of preset options, so it's a bit annoying in that sense. I'm not so good with presets anyway, and I talked about this on that pedal show with Mick, and he couldn't get along with the Keeley Halo as well, which is a great sounding pedal, but I couldn't get with those presets, and I couldn't figure it out. I did get one of the Halo cores, which is much easier, and I think that sounds amazing. So if you want to look at this like an old school pedal, I think the Delverb by UA Audio is really awesome. Great reverb. You have 3 choices of reverbs, 3 choices of delays. You can add in mod to delays. You can darken delays. It's digital Memory Man in EP, like a Echoplex. And their precision, which I think is more of like a digital delay, much cleaner sounding. So for me, on a mini travel board, that's just awesome. I'm totally happy with it. So I think that's a great pedal. And I think they're like $299, I think. And if you're going to get one, hey, use the link in that got down below for Sweetwater. I get a little bit of a kickback. And anything you buy, if you decide you want a blues driver, if you follow that link, they have the cookies now, we'll still get a little bit of a kickback. So if you want to help out the channel, it's a great way to do it. The Lion, I think, is really cool. If you want a digital solution, if you're practicing at home with a unit that sounds like a Marshall, that can get all the variants, except for the 80s modded Marshall thing, the Lion, I think, is a great choice. I really like it. I used it on the road as a backup. I didn't end up using it, fortunately, but I plugged it into a power amp, into a speaker cabinet, and I turned off the speaker emulation, and I thought it sounded really great. On its own, I think it sounds really, really nice. It takes pedals really well. I've been playing it, and I said when I did that video from about Clapton licks, I was going into the aux into my super lead, and I was going back and forth, and at one point I forgot which one I was playing. So does it, like what I said earlier, 2 people were like, oh, but does it sound like the real amp? It's like, well, what does that mean? Does it sound like a real Marshall in a room on 10 cranked up like that? No. There's Ron Ellis calling me. There we go, Ron Ellis. Using his pickups right now. So the Lion, I think, is great. The other unit, the Dream by Universal Audio is really good. I don't have that one. Lots of my friends really like it. I just got this one because I just like Marshalls. I wish it had a reverb in it. That would be great, like the Dream does. I haven't spent a lot of time with this, but this one is their Dumble, and it's really, really great. Much more tweaky like a Dumble is. Or a Two-Rock. You've got to spend some time understanding some of these switches and experiment a lot. But if you wanted just a direct solution for playing at home, and you want a great clean sound, this is super great and a nice Dumble distortion. But the Lion. I think it sounds really cool. All right, so in terms of the more expensive stuff, like I said, what I'm playing through right now, my happy amp choice for the year has been the Jake E. Lee Friedman 50 watt with the effects loop, master volume, 2 channels. It's a great amp, as you can hear. Super fun. And then the Vemram Booty G, which I really like as a boost. I know, like I said, Matt Schofield and I have been talking about how he's been using it as well. And I also wanted to say to you, once again, that the Blues Driver sounds awesome. So if you're looking at like, I want to get a Christmas present for myself, the 89, 79, whatever, under $100 Blues Driver. They do have the Wazacraft version. I have not played it. It is, I think, pushing $200. People I know have played it, said they prefer it. Because you got a few different options on it, but I don't know. Sounds pretty good. And also, of course, my favorite piece of gear all year is the Tuttle, the Jeff McErlane signature by Michael Tuttle. If you want to get one of these, you're interested in that, contact Michael Tuttle at Tuttle Guitars. Or just shoot me an email. I can hook you up with Michael. Sold a bunch already. I'm really psyched about that. I'm really happy people have been responding to the guitar. I'm overjoyed with the guitar. Completely. That's why you keep on seeing me play it. I've got a bunch of other guitars that aren't really getting played that much. And it's when I was in England, the people who played it said the same thing, like, oh, well, it feels kind of vintage, but it's really, really playable, but it still sounds kind of vintage, but it's got a modern feel to it too. And everybody said the same thing, like, wow, this is a great guitar. So it's a great guitar. All right, so if any questions about everything I was talking about? All right. Just playing sounds expensive regardless of the gear. I thank you. I appreciate that. Comparison is horrible indeed. I loved my Epiphones until I tried a Gibson. Nitro neck feels weird at first, then you take some time to get used to it. Yeah, comparing things can really, well, first of all, in anything in life, if you're going to compare yourself to another guitar player, it can really ruin the joy of playing guitar. Also with pedals, like, oh, I really love the way everything feels and it's sounding great, and then you play somebody else's rig and you're like, why did I do that? Now I'm just going to think about it. A decent tube amp, a decent guitar, and a few pedals. So, like when I plug into just like a Princeton Reverb reissue with a nice pedal, I'm always happy with that too. I think one more thing, and I've mentioned this before, is sometimes volume cures all. And I don't mean deafening volume. I mean, if you have a tube amp and you turn it up to the volume in which it's designed to be played, it's going to sound better. Everything sounds better. So before you start going, oh, my stuff sucks, and my stuff sucks, and this stinks, and it sounds like crap, how come it doesn't sound good? Because oftentimes you're not using the amp in the way it's been designed to be used, which is often the case if you're not playing with the band or you're just kind of noodling at home. That's why I tell everyone, that's why a Fractal or something like this UA Lion is a really nice way to go, because it emulates some of those sounds that you can't quite get. Experientially playing, they are very different. In an amp, in a room on a stage with an amp at volume is a completely different experience than playing a pedal going direct. It just is. You're not going to get that same air moving with the feedback and the reaction of the amplifier. So if somebody said to me, like, should I get an aux and a Friedman, or should I just get a digital pedal, I would say to play at home, I would go for the digital pedal for sure. All right, so did I miss the specs on the Tuttle? Geekies you want to get, pickups, fingerboard radius, profile neck. No, we're sticking with it the straight way it is for my guitar. If you want to contact Michael through me, just let him know I sent you my way. I don't, he will make whatever you want. Just let him know I sent you, because it's cool that way. It's good because then we're helping each other. He's been a friend of mine for 20 years. This is a 7 1/4 radius, 6105 frets. Nickel frets, not stainless. I don't really like stainless frets. They're cool, but I just wanted this to sound as vintage as possible. I have the 7 1/4 radius, like I said. This guitar is just about 7 pounds. It's alder. So all the guitars that Michael makes under my name are going to have a darker fingerboard because it looks right. And they're going to be between like 7 pounds and maybe top 7.5 pounds. So I like that range. 7 to 7.5 is totally cool with me. My Strat is 7.5 pounds. Perfect. So anywhere between that for an alder Strat, I love. So regular vintage style tuners because I think they sound different. Like all these things, I wanted to make it sound as much like a vintage Stratocaster as I could. And I think we achieved that. Things that I love that it's sort of the upgrades. It's Michael's bridge, but it's a 6-screw bridge. Bent saddles, but we got the push-in bar so you don't get that annoying sloppy stuff. And it sounds great. Stays in tune beautifully. I gotta say Michael's fretwork is pretty unparalleled in that I've experienced. So yeah, and so we're doing a stock color of this, but you would do any color you want on this guitar if you wanted. But he would also make any custom guitar that you want, if you want a bigger neck. This is an 860 neck. We're offering as just a standard thing 830 or 860. I like a little bit of a bigger neck. The 830 is a little small for my hands. I find it ends up hurting my hands a little bit. So I like a little bit, I guess this we'd call that a medium neck. Some people call it big. I think it's a medium. So yeah, for me, I just wanted it to sound like a vintage guitar. And I've gotten really used to 7 1/4 radius. I just think it sounds different. And the theories of that is like the neck is radius, but the pickups aren't. There's all sorts of, that's a good theory. I also just like the way it feels in my left hand. And Michael's fretwork is so good that people who've played it thought it was like a 10 or a 12-inch radius. They're like, is that, wow. Like, no way, that's not a 7 1/4. And they look and they're like, oh, it is a 7 1/4. So it's a 7 1/4, the best playing 7 1/4 I've ever tried as the guitars that he makes. So there we go. And I don't want to sound, I think you guys know me well enough. Excuses. I wouldn't put out a guitar with somebody I didn't love. You guys would see through it in a minute. And, my reputation is everything. So, I have been approached by other companies to do things and I don't love it. I'm not doing it. It's about, the reputation is, it's hard to repair your reputation if you're doing something dumb. Okay. This is all to just answer that question. And in the pickups, there's Michael Tuttle pickups. He makes great pickups. At the moment, these are Ron Ellis pickups in here, just because I was experimenting. So Michael's pickups are great. Or you can get Michael's pickups, or you can get the DiMarzio area if you want to go noiseless. And we have particular sets that we've chosen out that I used on the road. And sometimes when I'm on the road, I really like the noise-free pickups just because it makes life a lot easier. Certain rooms are really, really loud. And sometimes we get kind of just put on a fair amount of distortion, and that can be a bummer. Or if you're playing a ballad and you can't get away from the hum, that sucks to me. So those are the specs on that. We could tweak it any way you kind of want. But often people wanted just this. I think the main thing is the 7 1/4 with the big frets, with his fretwork and a medium-sized neck and the weight, all that stuff. Okay. I don't like solid state frets because you think they're too bright as well. I agree. They just don't sound vintage to me. Like I have a Tuttle with stainless. I say solid state frets, stainless steel frets. I have a guitar that Michael made. His stainless. If you want stainless frets, he makes great stainless fret guitars. And I really love the guitar, but it doesn't sound that vintage. And I think a part of it's a 10-inch radius, and then there's the stainless frets. Most guitars I've tried with stainless frets, I don't care for. I love the playability. I love the way they feel. I love how you would never have to get another fret job. But there's something about them, all of them, that's got a little bit of a ping or something to it. So that's for sure. I like light strats too. Sounds like it would be a nice guitar. I got to try one. Yeah. Are you working on that telly you brought up a few weeks ago? Yeah, we're going to do that. In a few weeks. A lot's been going on. So we're not going to hold off. We're going to do that. So it's in the works. It's a Nashville style telly that we're putting out as well with the same specs, but it's going to be ash and a maple neck. so you can get the full-on Tele sound. But I also really love the sound of Strats, and so we want to do something a little different. It will have the tummy cut and the arm cut, so it's just going to be really a comfortable Tele with the Nashville stuff. Solid state frets, yes. So yeah, for me, like they have to have dark rosewood. So that's part of the specs of the guitar, is doing the dark stuff. All right, so what else is going on? If you're in New York on February 4th, I've got a gig coming up at the Bitter End. It should be fun. In September, we're discussing some stuff in other guitar breaks over in Europe with me and another guitar player who I am friends with, who you guys are familiar with. So that'd be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. That trip was a lot of fun. The pedal show. Let's talk about that pedal show. Mick and Dan are as cool as you think in person. It is in the middle of nowhere, which is funny. I was talking about like kind of in the middle of nowhere. It is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I was really surprised. You ain't kidding that this is sort of like on a farm area, and then use these buildings where they have their shop, which is really beautiful and really cool. Actually reminded me of True Fire, with like the coffee machines and the amps and the pedals and the filming room and all that. That was a lot of fun. Rosie the dog was awesome, and I really had a good time. Such good guys, and thanks for all you guys who checked it out. I think it went well. I was kind of nervous about it because my hands, like I said, were cold, and I get kind of, like I said, freaked out when somebody says, "Okay, you're on camera and you got to play something." You always feel like you got to just play this crazy stuff, and that's just in my own head as opposed to just playing well. So I find it to be tricky. Are you going to NAMM in this January? Yeah, I'm going to be at NAMM this year again. Pretty much go every year. It's great for the hang. I get to see all my friends at one spot. And a lot of the manufacturers I deal with are going to be there. So it's a good business trip to take every year. Have I covered everything? I'm trying to think of everything that, if there's any questions you guys have on the gear that I'm using or anything in general. Michael, how now I get why they have frequent internet issues. Yeah, we pulled up and was like, oh wow, you ain't kidding. Oh, you're on, chiming in. What's up, man? How's it going? My friend Iran. Looking forward to seeing you in January. He's coming to New York. Good friend of mine. You should have warmed you up with the tube amps. That's what they're for. So, I got there, they're cold. Just like I said, I've got this hand thing where my hands are cold. And then the first day at this workshop, the hotel was really cold. They took care of it pretty quickly, but boy, that was rough. So, unfortunately, it's actually a touch of Raynaud's disease, which is a genetic thing that your hands get really cold in cold weather. So I have to have gloves and like hand warmers. It's actually a big pain in the ass, I gotta say. If anybody else has got that, it is a big pain in the butt, especially when you play guitar. So anyway, do I like Bigsby's? I do. I like Bigsby's a lot. I had a Les Paul with a Bigsby on it, which was awesome looking, but it was too much of a pain in my butt because where the volume knob is for the Bigsby on the Les Paul was really tricky and annoying. So I did end up selling a guitar. I do like Bigsby's. They feel very different than a Strat bar, and they sound different. Like my friend Jason Laughlin, go check out Jason Laughlin's channel, uses the Bigsby all the time, and it's got a really particular sound. Same thing with like the tremolo on the Jaguars and the Jazzmasters. That tremolo sounds different, like the dip, right? How fast it goes down. Just like a Floyd Rose sounds different by how fast it drops down. So like a Bigsby has more like that kind of thing with a smoother feel. I like them. I don't have any Bigsby guitars though. I got a plenty of guitars. I just kind of like the way Strat 6-screw style. I like the PRS bridge a lot too. I think that's it's a nice upgrade. And Michael's bridge. What about the Maple Neck Strat? I've got a few. I love Maple Neck Strats. I don't necessarily like maple necks more than rosewood necks. I think it comes down to the guitar. I've just lean towards the rosewood neck guitar. I don't know why. It's because it's my favorite sound of Stratocasters is normally like 60s. So those are all usually maple. I mean rosewood. So my 64, my 68. I just like that sound. I have some maple neck Strats, and I really love the sound of those as well. You got to pick one or the other. But it's a guitar by guitar basis, right? You play one and. But if you want something to sound like a 1954 Strat, then it's got to be ash with the maple neck. Like that's going to sound different. For me, for Strats, I always really like that big, warm sort of Hendrixy Stratty sound, which is usually on a lot of the records was a 64 Strat, is my understanding. But then again, of course, he played the maple neck Strats. So blah, blah, blah. You find a good Strat, you find a good Strat. Do you ever try any other pickups like Lollar, Fralin, or Throwback? Yeah, I've got Throwbacks in some guitars. Throwbacks are great pickups. I've got Throwbacks in one of my Les Pauls, and I have Throwback single coils in one of my Tuttles, and they are awesome. I really like Mike John's pickups, and he's a great guy. Awesome sounding pickups. Highly recommend those too. I love the Ron Ellis. These are all really expensive. Guys, like also... Seymour Duncan makes great sounding pickups. DiMarzio noise-free pickups sound amazing. Like, so do you need the really, really expensive ones? I think this one once again comes back down to what are you playing through? That's when you start to really hear those differences, I believe. Okay, so, all right. So Mojo67, can you discuss the Octavate, the Vibe Machine as to their uniqueness? Okay, so he's asking about on my pedal board. On the floor, the octave pedal right here, and my Univibe. I just like octave pedals. There's a bunch of them out there. I just liked the way the Weaver one reacted with my fingers and sounded. I have an old full tone one, which sounds great, but it's really big. And yeah, he's not someone, anyway, okay. So it's the Octavias, some of them don't react as well as others. I've played a few that I'm like, it doesn't feel as good as that old full tone I have. And the Argo, which is really nice, by Mythos, that's a nice sounding one. I really like this one. I don't know. It just sounds good. I wish I had a light on it. You could put a light on it, but people sometimes say that kind of changes the tone of it a little bit. Okay, now the Drybell Univibe. I love Univibes, and my favorite Univibe, I gotta say, is the Weaver. It's over there somewhere. It's big. It's the R. Weaver Violet Vibe, or I have a Midnight Vibe. Sounds amazing. Just this super thick and beautiful sounding Univibe. It's just really big, and it takes up a lot of pedal board room. And I try to make stuff as portable as I can. Like, that's as big as I want to go. I tried to fit it on there in some logical way, and it wouldn't work. So the Drybell sounds amazing, and it's small, and it just runs off of 9 volts, whereas the big one runs off of 18, and you have to make sure you have the right amount of milliamps. So it's just a little bit more problematic in the sense of travel. But if I'm going to, like, on a recording, I want to use a Univibe, I'm going to use the Weaver one. It just got that big, full-on, crazy, thick Hendrix sound. So beautiful sounding. So that's the reason why I opted for that one. The Drybell, I've had it forever, and it sounds amazing. So it does the Univibe thing I needed to do. It's the best sounding one I've tried, in my experience. I have not A/B'd it to the version 3 that they're up to now. Of course, the nerdy guy in me is like, I want to get the new version. It's a Univibe. Like, for as much as I use Univibe, do I need to be buying another Univibe to compare to that one? But compared to other Univibes I've tried, in the price point and for the size, the Vibe Machine by Drybell is, of what I've tried for the price and the size, it's far above everything else I've tried. Do you combine your hats and the guitar or more the whole outfit? Yes, both. No, it's more. It depends. Depends on what the gig is. If I'm kind of being relaxed, I might wear a cowboy. I might wear the that's my dog boarding place in Brooklyn hat. Do you regret any pedal you regret letting go? All of them, because you just like having them. I was gonna say my Klon, but I don't regret my Klon at all. It's nice to say you own one, but didn't Behringer just put out one for like $79 or something like that? So there's so many things that Klons, so many great clones of Klons, and the KTR or the Tumnus is amazing. Sounds like there's so many of them. The Mythos one sounds great. So, do I regret letting that go? No. Do I regret any letting it? Oh yeah. Like when I was younger, I sold my original Boss CE2 to someone, or I let somebody borrow it. So that's a bummer. Like one of the ones I got when I was in high school. I regret that going away. I don't know if I sold it, but that one I let go. An original Small Stone Electro-Harmonix. Now, of course, the downside to that thing is when you had it off and you'd hear in the background because it wasn't true bypass. I miss that. Would be kind of nice to still have. 64 Deluxe Reverb. It's not a pedal, but I sold that so I could get my first Bogner, which is a great amp. Led me on a whole different world and introduced me to Reinhold. It worked really well. I'm not a deluxe guy, but in terms of now having a 64 Deluxe, that would still be nice to have, which I don't have anymore. I think that's it. All right, guys, I got to do some dog walking. I am going to the Bitter End tonight to see Osnoy and Joe Bonamassa play, so that'll be fun at a small club. I've never, I've not met Joe, which is funny. All my friends I've got all these friends, and never met him. They're like, Joe, right? I'm like, no, I don't, actually. It's kind of funny. Wait, David Levi, Iran's friend. You guys, David, you're a great guitar player, man. You guys check out David Levi. I know you through Instagram. It's my friend Iran. It's amazingly good guitar players. You guys check him out. David, do you have a YouTube page? Just put your YouTube link on there. But if not, on Instagram, go check out David. Great guitar player. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for the hang. I'm not sure I'll be doing it between Christmas and New Year. I might take the week off. I'm not sure. But thanks for being here. If you want to help out the channel, I got some of the courses on sale using the links above or below. All that kind of stuff. If you're interested in any of the pedals that I've mentioned, like the Delverb or the Lion or the Blues Driver, if you use any of the links that I have below to Sweetwater, there's the cookies thing, so they keep in there for a while on the systems. In other words, if you looked at a Blues Driver, didn't buy that, but you went back to the Sweetwater page and bought a 59 Les Paul, I would get a small percentage of that as a affiliate link. So that's kind of cool the way they do that. So if you're going to pick up something like a Blues Driver or the Delverb or anything like that, please use the links below. Helps me out. All right, guys, you all rock. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. My best to everyone, and thank you to everybody who's always here and all the support and everything like that. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. So hopefully I'll see you sooner than later. See ya.